Well, hey there, and welcome to Wedding Planning Simplified. I'm Amy from Unmistakably You, and I am a wedding planner and educator here in London, Ontario. I hope that you're having a fantastic Sunday. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're so excited that you're here. We go live every Sunday at 1 o'clock. With a few exceptions, we've been pre-recorded a number of times over the summer as we've been in the thick of wedding season. And last weekend, we had an illness in our special guest, so we were unable to do our live last weekend, but we will catch up on that at some point in the future. Welcome to Attire October. This month, we have decided that because if you are newly engaged, you may be starting the process of planning early on, which of course means looking for attire for yourself and your wedding party. And so we thought that this month we would talk about tips for all of the attire, from wedding gowns to attire for your wedding party, whether you have bridesmaids and groomsmen or, best ladies or whatever it is. And we also thought that we would talk about attiring guys specifically, as well as some tips on shopping for gowns in alternative ways. So it's going to be an exciting month here. Hopefully you can find something that is useful for you. And today we're going to talk about tips for wedding dress shopping. Now, as always, I encourage you to say hi in the comments. If you have a question, don't hesitate to plug it in and I will deal with it as we go. But today's plan is to give you some tips kind of from start to finish about shopping for a wedding dress. So the first thing you'll want to think about is your budget. Before you ever do anything, I am a huge proponent of discussing a sensible and reasonable budget with your fiance. And this is something that's not really all that easy to do if you've never planned a wedding. So we have all kinds of resources for how to allocate your budget appropriately, what is right for you, how to determine priorities. So we have all kinds of videos and resources. Reach out if you are looking for some budgeting help. But I would definitely advise you to set your budget before you start the process of gown shopping, because it's just like anything. If you go in without a set number in mind, you are going to fall in love with something that is over that comfortable level for you. And then there's not really any going back from that. So I would advise you to set a budget. And then when you go into a gown shop, make sure you communicate that budget with the stylist who is helping you, because you don't want to find yourself in the position where you've fallen in love with a gown that just nothing else will compare to, and it is dramatically over a price that you are comfortable with. So set your budget first. And I would also advise you not to start gown shopping until you've actually solidified your venue, because realistically, your venue is going to play a big determining role in the style of gown that you go with. Getting married on a beach is going to determine a certain style of gown that won't necessarily work in a ballroom, and vice versa. You don't want to have that big Cinderella dress with all the tulle on a beach so that it gets all full of sand. So find your venue first. And then hopefully, depending on your planning time frame, you've got a solid 8 to 10 to even 12 months to start gown shopping. Now, if you're on a tighter time frame, there are certainly lots and lots of ways that you can still find a beautiful dress. There are places like David's Bridal where you can most often purchase off the rack. Sometimes traditional salons will have off-the-rack sales. Just keep an eye on their web pages or give them a call and ask if one's coming up. There are also lots of online sources like Azazi or BHLDN that you can find beautiful gowns, and often they're more affordable as well than the ones that you may find in a salon. But if you do have the luxury of a long engagement period, I would suggest starting the process, like I said, 8 to 12 months before your actual wedding, because if you're buying a gown, depending on the designer and depending on the gown shop that's being custom made, that process can take from 6 to 8 months. And you want to make sure that you have enough time to get that gown in and have it altered before your wedding so that you're not panicking with a short time frame in the days leading up to your wedding. So the ideal time frame, especially with some questionable supply shortages and shipping issues these days that are sort of a spin-off result of COVID and the situation that the world is in, give yourself as much time as you can. You'll want to likely set an appointment This is going to ensure that you are going to have a dedicated stylist for a set period of time. It's often an hour, hour and a half, or a 2-hour appointment, so that you don't feel rushed, so that you have personal service, and so that you get the time and the space with your entourage to really enjoy the experience. Now, different salons do provide different experiences. So read the reviews, ask around, post in Facebook groups to see who's had great experiences where. And the other thing to think about is your size and your shape. So if you are plus sized, know that the unfortunate reality is that a lot of sample dresses come in very small sizes. So you'll want to make sure that you have inquired of the salon before you go in for an appointment as to how much stock they have that you'll be able to try on in appropriate sample sizes for your body shape. There are certain salons in different locations, usually larger centers, that specialize in all body types and carry more plus size gowns. So that's something to keep on the radar as well. And I have never understood why, but bridal gowns fit small. So if you normally wear a street size 8, it's likely that you are going to wear a 10 or a 12 in a bridal gown. So set your mindset, prep yourself for that going in. It always has seemed to me like it should be the other way around. You should be feeling really great about the size that you're wearing. But ultimately, know that if you are in the right shop and with the right stylist, no matter your bridal, no matter your shape or your size, every body is a bridal body, and they will be able to help you find a beautiful gown to suit your specific silhouette. Now, I would also encourage you to have some inspiration going in. So whether that's from Pinterest or whether you've gone the old-fashioned route and ripped pages out of a bridal magazine, have some ideas of what you're looking for. Things like the overall silhouette. So do you want a mermaid or a fit and flare? Do you want an A-line? Do you want a ball gown? Do you want a sheath? Start to think about the shape of dress that is appropriate to your venue and the style of your wedding, as well as your body type. And that will help to give your stylist some guidance. Oftentimes, the salon will ask those questions before you go in, before you make your appointment, so that they can pull some appropriate options for you before the appointment even starts, so that it can be a little bit more efficient. So have some inspiration photos, but then I also encourage you to be open-minded. If you're going to an upscale boutique, the stylists are really well educated. They're very well versed in the stock that they have. They have a lot of knowledge about the shapes and sizes and styles and different options that are going to suit every body type and wedding vision. So be open to trying on something that perhaps is a little bit outside of what you thought you wanted. I know when I went dress shopping, I ended up with something completely different than what I thought. And to be honest with you, I still remember when I saw it hanging on the hanger, I said to the stylist who was helping me, "Oh, that looks fairly matronly." And then I put it on and it was like, "No, this is actually my dress." So do be open-minded to what the stylist is going to recommend for you. You'll want to think about who you're going to take with you on your trip to the salon. I also learned this the hard way. I went shopping for the first time without my mom. Sorry, mom, if you're watching. There was a sale and I'm a cheapskate, and that was the motivation. And then I realized after the fact how upset my mom was that she hadn't been able to come with me. So she actually did come with me on my second shopping trip and was there when I did buy the matronly gown that I ended up loving. So think about who you're going to take with you. Often mom, maybe mother-in-law, sometimes wedding party, sometimes BFFs who aren't in the wedding party. But just be mindful that the more people you take, the more opinions you're going to have, and the harder it might be to really focus in on what is right for you. If you have all of these competing voices who are stating their opinion, it can sort of muddy the waters and make it a little bit more difficult for you to really focus on what you're seeing and what makes you feel good and what you really love. So think about that. Also think about the dynamics between anyone that you're contemplating bringing. If you know that your mother-in-law and your mother don't actually get along that well, and I hope that's not the case, but if that is the case, perhaps don't invite both of them. Maybe you could do separate shopping trips to include both of them, but not at the same time. If you have friends who don't necessarily get along, first of all, I would advise you not to put them in your wedding party, because that stress isn't going to get any better by your wedding day. But also don't take them gown shopping with you, because you want it to be a positive experience. You want people there who are going to boost you up and to help your self-esteem and help you feel beautiful, and to give you positive feedback on what they're seeing. So think about the people that you're taking with you before you take all 20 of your best friends and family to the salon with you. Also, be mindful of the space that the salon has available for your entourage. I would encourage you, after you've tried a number of gowns, not to make a snap decision. Some salons do offer you promotions if you buy a gown on the spot, but I would caution you that if you're not 100% certain, if you haven't had that moment, if it's not completely what you envisioned, it's not within your budget, don't buy a gown because of a promotion that the salon is running. I have seen a number of brides who've done things like that and who have regretted it the day or the week or the month later. And after having put down a 50% non-refundable deposit, they're stuck with the gown that they don't actually love. So try not to make snap decisions. Try to really give yourself enough time to think about it, to maybe go home and discuss with someone else. If your partner is going to be involved in the decision, make sure that you have time to talk with them before you commit to a dress, because many salons will require a 50 or 60% deposit, and that's usually non-refundable. The other thing to think about is timing on your gown's arrival. As I mentioned, you'll want to make sure you have time for alterations before the wedding. So the ideal situation is to have your gown arrive to the salon about 12 weeks or 3 months before the wedding date. That gives you a little bit of a buffer room, because you're going to want to start your alterations 6 to 8 weeks prior to the wedding. Many brides need 3 fittings, sometimes even 4. You can sometimes get away with 2, but you'll want to start that process ideally about 6 weeks before the wedding. So if you can, about 3 or 4 months before the wedding, secure your tailor or your seamstress, make sure that they have you on their calendar. Then when that dress comes in at about the 6-week mark, you can go for your first fitting. Now, that first fitting is going to be the point at which you kind of deal with the big stuff. If you are changing the neckline, or if you're adding sleeves, or if you are having a bustle done, those are going to be the big things that they deal with. So you'll want to most likely have your shoes as well for the height of the hem, but you don't necessarily need to have your undergarments or your shapewear yet, because once that first appointment happens, you'll have a better sense of exactly where the dress is going to hit you. If it has a plunging V neckline or an illusion back, that's going to determine the kind of undergarments that you wear, or perhaps you even have just cups sewn into the dress. So don't necessarily buy your undergarments until after that first fitting, when you have a better idea of where the dress will sit. But you do want to have any undergarments or lingerie that you're going to wear by the second fitting, because that's when we'll really get into the nitty-gritty of the shape and fitting it perfectly to your body so that it is as custom as it can be. Then you'll have a final fitting, usually about 2 weeks before the wedding. And that just makes sure that if there have been any fluctuations in your weight for any reason, that the dress is accommodating perfectly and fitting absolutely like a glove. And then hopefully you can pick up your dress about a week before the wedding. They will send it home with you, packed likely in a garment bag. Best case scenario, if there is somewhere that you can store that gown where your fiance is not going to see it, if they are not meant to see it prior to the wedding, ideally, it's a smoke-free, pet-free home where you can actually take your gown out of the bag and let it breathe, so that it's not getting crunched, particularly if it is a large ball gown, so it's not getting crunched up inside that garment bag. So leave it out, let it breathe. And then the couple of days before the wedding, you'll want to either have it professionally steamed or steam it yourself, just to make sure that it's completely wrinkle-free. I would also recommend, on the topic of undergarments, that you take your accessories, any veil, hairpiece, jewelry, anything like that, try to have those arranged by your second or third fitting so that you can get the full effect when you have the dress on, and you can make sure that all of those accessories work perfectly with the gown. Hopefully that answers a few questions that you have if you are starting the gown shopping journey. I would love to encourage you to ask any further questions you have by posting comments on the video or send me an email, amy@unmistakably.you.com. Next Sunday, Thanksgiving, we are going to dive into color schemes and how to address color schemes when it comes to attire for your wedding party. So don't miss us then. And as I mentioned, we will also be connecting the following week on the 16th with Tamara of Savvy Bridal Boutique, which is a consignment shop here in London, just outside of London. And so if you're thinking about perhaps purchasing a pre-loved dress, it's an excellent budget-friendly and environmentally friendly option. So we're going to talk about that the following week. I will see you here next week to talk all about colors. Until then, have a wonderful week and happy planning. Take care.